Strap in. It's time for the Half Parmi. My name's Josh Liston, Oliver Hunter. How you going, Ollie?
Oh, mate, we're here. We're doing it. The mics are on. That's been half the battle, to be honest. But the mics are on, the computers are on, and we're recording.
They're hotter than a piece of chicken smothered in cheese, ham, and some tomato sauce right now.
Yeah, throw some chips in there as well. But yeah, I think there's something about a stat around there that with in the podcast world that 98% of them don't even get to this point. So we're
17 seconds in.
Yeah, 17 seconds in, and the record button actually gets hit.
Yeah,
so
and the audience stopped after 10 seconds.
Yeah, we're already here. Whatever happens from here, we are in the top 2% or something. So
correct. So it's episode 1 of the Half Parmi, and I thought a good place to start today might be, why is the show called the Half Parmi? Because people most likely have seen the artwork by this point as well, which we were both super stoked about. So this idea kind of came about because you and I were going to see Nate Bargatze, who is a shared comedic interest and hero, I guess, or at least of mine.
Yeah.
And one of my favourites, and I think Ollie's probably the same. And we were sitting in a pub in Melbourne, and I've eaten a lot of parmies in my time. Like, I just did a gig a few days ago at a pub where there's 104 parmies on the menu, so I'm not averse to a parmy. But Ollie ordered something I'd never heard about before, the Half Parmi. And that name just kind of leaped into my brain as, if we ever do a podcast, it's got to be called the Half Parmi.
I'll be honest, that the Half Parmi can be ordered at the Imperial Hotel on Burke Street. Happy to give it a shout out because it's a scrumptious parmy. It's up there with one of the top parmies I've had in my time. And I'll be honest, that they know who they are, and they know the size of the full parmy. And sometimes you just don't want a full parmy because sometimes you don't want to put yourself in a hole for 7 hours. And then so they knew what they're doing, and I saw the Half Parmi there, and I went, you know what, I want to enjoy the show. I want to have a good time. I want my body to have a good time as well as my mind and spirit. So I ordered the Half Parmi, and I have no shame in that. Some people might think, oh, well, be a man, just eat the full one.
Yeah.
But no, it was a moment in time, and I appreciate what it did for me.
I love too that being a central CBD Melbourne pub, the price was as though it was a full parmy anyway. So they were giving you less parmy but charging the same.
Yes.
And the other thing is, anyone who questions that would know that you don't roll into a comedy show after eating half a block of cheese.
Yeah, no.
Like, you got to minimise cheese.
Excess dairy and comedy shows, performing or watching, not a good combo.
I've reached a point in my life, Ollie, I'm the better part, or actually over 10 years older than Ollie, I'm pretty sure I am, that red meat. I grew up on a farm too, guys. If this is the first time you've ever heard me speak, I grew up on a farm. We had cows and sheep. I ate red meat every day of my life until I was like 18. I've developed a sensitivity to red meat where if I have anything important to do an hour or so later than eating that red meat, I can't commit to the meat.
Really? Wow. Is that like you reckon that's a deep sort of anxiety thing? Like, what are we working with there? Like, what is the trigger in you that says?
Well, it is now that you've actually incepted that into my brain. I thought maybe I was just getting old.
Maybe it's attached to some childhood trauma that you weren't aware of until right now. Yeah. And this whole podcast has taken a different shape.
So I was force-fed my parents' worldview and also a lot of meat.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, basically what we're saying is Josh doesn't mind a bit of Pauline Anson and loves a steak.
Okay, it's really taken a turn. So the Half Parmi, that's the story of the Half Parmi, guys. We had a moment. It kind of sat in my brain as that's what the show has to be called. We went to see Nate Bargatze. The fact that I could think after having my mind blown by that show was surprising, but we got back out to the street, kind of looked at each other all, and we're like, yeah, I think we've got to do a podcast. I don't know why that was the connection.
Yeah, we have to do something. We have to do something because, I think what that man can do on a stage is the sort of thing that as comedians, as budding comedians, both of us, it's the sort of thing you just put aside as a whole other stratosphere of the art.
Yes.
And whether we, don't want to get too sort of negative, but I don't know if either of us will reach that height. But we love a man that can do it
Well,
to that level.
I know I walked out of there dejected because I didn't, other than Bill Burr, realise that height even existed until that night.
Yeah.
So I think you were more excited. I walked out dejected, and this podcast is the net result.
Yeah. So one of us is pumped right up, and the other is just hanging by a thread.
Yeah,
basically.
correct.
Yeah.
Once again, my childhood trauma. So we are going to have some regular segments, guys. I'm not sure how far through that we're going to get today, being the first episode. This kind of just feeling things out. But there was one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Ollie, and that's I've been seeing you doing a little run of shows. So I was thinking maybe we could just have a quick catch up, what you've been doing and where you're going, whether it's comedy or otherwise.
Yeah, I've done a couple of shows recently. The first one I've done a few times is a regular in Brunswick. It's called Funny Near the Brunny. So I think there's a bit of a story with this gig. It's called Funny Near the Brunny because it used to be at the Brunswick Hotel, so Funny at the Brunny. But then I think just before COVID, so maybe 5 years ago, someone decided to burst a water main and proceeded to flood the Brunswick Hotel. I still don't know if the pub has reopened, but the gig run by Glenn Zen, a wonderful man, runs this gig at a bar called the Bergie Seltzer, which is like up the road from the Brunswick Hotel. So hence Funny Near the Brunny. And so last Monday when we're recording this, it was on, and it was they have a Bergie band room. So it was in the band room now, and they're going to move that there, I think, permanently, because it's got quite a following, this gig. It's been going 10 years, and this little bar packs out. So he now has it in his band room, and killer little gig on a Monday night in Brunswick. And if you're lucky and you're on, Michael Reynolds, who's a professional photographer, he goes as a punter and takes his camera and takes these like killer pro shots of people. And I think it's great because he doesn't expect any money or even really any shout out on social media. So it's awesome for like comedians who may not have the money or the resources to pay for professional shots. So he's a really cool guy as well that pops in and does that. So I love doing the gig because I know I'm going to have 3 or 4 photos that it's going to be professional quality. So shout out, Michael.
Well, the name of that show stands out to me every time I see it. And now you mention it, it probably is the quality of those photos that makes me stop and look at all their stuff. But let's just caveat, was it Michael? Don't walk up to Michael and just tell him that give me free photos because the Half Parmi said so. That's our little caveat.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't go dropping Ollie in that. So you've done some other shows this week though, not just that one.
Yeah, I did. And then on the Wednesday, so a couple of days later, did opened a fringe show for fella Jeremy Moses is the guy's name. And a really nice guy, and it was a really fun show. And he asked me a few weeks back to open for him. So I just did 10 minutes off the top. And yeah, it was at a fun little venue, Cameo Cinema in Elstonwick. And yeah, nice little, like in the jazz room, I think it was called, or piano room. And it was like, where they have some like little sort of jazz or little intimate gigs, music and then typically on a Wednesday night, every Wednesday, there's a comedy gig run there by a guy, Oscar, is the guy's name. And I haven't performed at that gig before, but it's on my radar now. But yeah, it was part of the Melbourne Fringe Festival, which is just wrapped up, I believe, but went for sort of 2.5 weeks through October.
Okay, so I do actually have that on a little note for myself. Is the Melbourne Fringe something that this year has been elevated in promotion, or has it not happened in several years because of all the stuff that's happened? Because I can't remember seeing dedicated stuff from people, whether they're artists or comedians or visual artists or whatever, all the things that make up a fringe normally. I can't remember actually even hearing about a Melbourne Fringe until this year.
Well, I think typically it has been known for its, and I don't want to put my foot in anything here, but I think it's typically been known for its lack of marketing and publication of it as an event. compared to the Melbourne Comedy Festival or Adelaide Fringe. And Adelaide Fringe is Adelaide's like preeminent. Is that the word, Josh?
Preeminent, yes.
Preeminent festival. As they don't have like an Adelaide necessarily have an Adelaide Comedy Festival, but they have the 3 or I think even 4 week, maybe even 5 week Fringe Festival, sort of through late Jan to all of February. So yeah, I think Melbourne Fringe did get a bit of a shot in the arm this year, and I was seeing more and more of it. I'm with you. So yeah, it's definitely something on my radar for next year, because I think it's a great opportunity to, like, a lot of comedians were doing sort of work in progress shows, sort of building their new shows for the comedy festival next year. So I think that could be a cool little platform for me to use it for that next year as well.
Excellent. And where are you going? Is there anything on the immediate radar that you...
Well, mate, the immediate radar for me is I'm about to have a baby. So it's fucking nuts. I don't know if we've decided we're swearing on this podcast.
But it's happening now.
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, about 2 weeks from the day of this record, where Kira, my fiance, and I were about to have the first little baby, which, if you had asked me, I said to a few people recently, if you had asked me 3 years ago that I would be, when I was living in Albury with my parents, if in 3.5 years, you'll be living in the outer southeast suburbs of Melbourne and about to have a baby, and by the way, you're also engaged, I would have been like, what drugs are you taking there, mate? And can I have some? So 2 weeks, have a baby, and then after I'll probably have a couple of weeks of sort of maybe November, 3 weeks off in November for when the baby comes, and maybe have a little rest from the gigs. But yeah, I've already got a few in the cannon for late November, December, which is awesome. So I will give this little nugget, and I did have a meeting with a guy to potentially help me direct my Melbourne Comedy Festival show next year.
Oh wow!
I saw a post from there. Marcel is the guy's name. He's a great comedian and just really nice fellow. I met him at a gig in Cairns earlier this year, and he put out a post that he help people directs and builds their show. And he said, if you're interested, hit me up. So I hit him up, and hopefully we can build we had a great first meeting, and it was just amazing. We do it. You and I do it, Josh. We bounce ideas and talk comedy, and I love doing it. It's one of my favorite things, to bounce ideas off each other and collaborate. And yeah, straight away in this hour conversation, he was like, "Oh, what do you think your show will be?" And I had these ideas, and it was already building. So not necessarily materials there from minute 0 to minute 60 or 50, but the ideas are there. And then even in that hour conversation, I was telling little quips and little stories. He's like, "Oh, that's a bit for the show. That story can go in the show." And straight away, I got to the end of the hour with him, and I felt amazing about this potential show that doesn't really exist yet, but is something there. So it was just cool to have that.
It's really fascinating how some of these shows have people that are directing, and I think in the future maybe you'll probably have more idea what that means, but it's not the first time I've heard that. They're not so much contributing material and stories as helping people shape the movements of the show and what you should go to from one thing to the next, so it becomes a show.
Yes, exactly.
Not just a collection of random things.
That's the conversation we had today. It was big part of it was like, yeah, you can just have, like, when comedians you might have heard this already, but I've heard it a little bit, is when people go, "Oh, my show doesn't have a theme, or there's no story arc. It's just an hour. It's an hour, or it's 50 minutes of funny jokes. It's just trying to be funny." It's like, yeah, but even that has a there is a concept or a theme to it. Like, I would say my show last year, I wouldn't have hung my hat on it and said it had a theme. But if you go back, and if you saw the show, Josh, and if I go back and listen to it, you would realize that there is the constants of, I moved to Melbourne and now I live with my partner, and this is where my life's at. Like, my life has changed in the last year, in the last 6 months from when I did that show.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening. So that's the theme. So that's what Marcel, he really showed me, that, and also that the show is in comedy is different from say doing a club set or doing like a club show to having a show that's ready and good to go for the comedy festival or that's more of a show.
More of a show.
Because sometimes, doing a comedy club set is just that. It's late at night. It's in a pub, and it's just stand there or just get on stage and smash the drunk audience for half an hour with jokes. And that's what's needed for that. But when it's your festival show and you're building something and you're doing it between 10 and 28 times.
Yes.
Like it becomes a thing.
Yeah.
That isn't just jokes.
You also want to not take a week for it to become that smoother experience. You want to kind of start off with it pretty close to that, I guess. If you want to, particularly if you're doing a shorter run, if you're only doing 7 or 10 days or whatever the shorter version is, you don't have 7 or 8 shows to get it right.
To get it warmed up. And that's like straight away talking to Marcel, and the idea of having a director was that he, like, even if I didn't, and he didn't necessarily mean either that I had to do like 7 trial shows before I did my first one. But he's like, we had already have talking like, you knock out 1 or 2 trials to just get an idea of what the hour looks like or the 50 minutes looks like. But this idea that, even if you're doing a full run of the festival, you don't want to, like you said, you either can't afford, but you also don't want from the audience point of view to have, a week of, is this something? Like,
Yeah. Or there's the classic, there's no real punchline for that one. Sorry.
Yeah.
That joke's
you can't do that.
That bit's finished.
You can do that once per set, I reckon.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that on your 5th festival show, the comedy festival, there's no punchline to that. Well, mate, when is it coming?
Yeah.
Because we're a week into the festival, and it's Newsflash, champ, it's the comedy festival, and comedy, you need some punchlines.
You need a couple in there. So talking of punchlines, and you said before, if someone had have told you the amount of life and overhaul that was going to happen in such a short amount of time for you, you would have told them that it was impossible. Yet it's happening. And it got me thinking about the speech that you gave at your engagement party recently.
Yeah.
And I've seen you crush multiple times. So for you, it's just one of many crushes I've seen you have. But you crushed at a level that I don't think I've ever seen you crush in a comedy set to your parents, talking about being afraid of how your life was changing so quickly and your whole family, and they were dying, and you were just absolutely bashing jokes out. So was that what, did you know that you were just going to roll out a couple of bits of gear and then get on a roll and just actually almost do a set as your speech?
Well, I will be honest, I didn't expect that. I think I did. You were, if you remember, I did sort of break that 4th wall a bit, and my cousin CJ was in the front. Yeah. And I actually said to him, I said out loud to him at one point, I'm doing gear apparently.
It's happening.
Like, I'm doing this, it's now a set. Yeah. And there was, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, Josh, but sometimes for me, if I've got a microphone in my hand, I have to crack a joke, and if that becomes a set or there's a moment, and there definitely was a moment in my head during that isolated speech where I know this is a crowd, like there's 60 people here, like
this is way better than an open mic.
Yeah, and I mean, I obviously knew in my head, I guess, that I was going to be doing a speech, whether I had one written down and. But I knew my dad, he loves it. So I knew straight away, like, I've become the speech person at the family event. So whether that's like Mum's 50th a few years ago, like Dad was like, you're doing it. And so I knew, I was like, so I did have a couple of lines that were in the gun ready to go.
Yeah. I've said to Ollie multiple times this year, and even though I've been doing comedy on and off for about 4 years, I've made the most progression probably from February till now, more so than I had that entire time before that.
Mhm.
But in February, I was lucky enough to get asked by my family to do my nan's 100th birthday speech.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I've still been chasing that level of crushing. It's actually the only gig where I'll say that I killed.
Yeah.
There wasn't
Yeah.
any before that I would say I killed at that level. And I because I've been more aware of it, I don't think I've done that well since.
I mean, mate, to be honest, that is the best place to do well.
Yes.
Because sometimes when you announce to your family or your siblings, and for you, as you mentioned, you're a bit older than me, so you started purely at you were an older age than me. Like I was 20-year-old second year uni student.
I was 36.
I started comedy.
Yeah.
So at 20 years old, there's no real stakes when you start anything.
No.
But when you hit your family as a 36-year-old with, I'm doing stand-up now, they might. So when you go and kill in front of them in a family setting, not even they don't even come to the comedy. You went to them with and so to blow them out of the water like that that's where you get off and they're like, oh yeah, that's great. Like, you know, there might have been a few pin drops where like, oh yeah, he said he does stand-up and that makes sense.
Yeah,
like
that was happening a little bit.
Yeah. And I love that when I've had that happen a few times at different stuff where people are like, oh yeah, I guess it makes sense that you're doing that now.
One of my cousins.
Like, oh, thanks, mate. Yeah.
One of my cousins in our generation, my little brother and I are the two youngest. And then there's my oldest cousin, Andrew, and he is a pretty successful person in the arts, I guess. Like he wrote the movie The Water Diviner. And
Really?
That was
that's
what my grandfather used to do for a job. He was partly a water diviner. I mean, that's not what he called it. He was like a plumber and he dug trenches and holes and wells for people. And him and his wife, Megan, Andrew and Megan, wrote the book, The Water Diviner, together. So he gave me a compliment afterwards and said, oh, you had some real good jokes in there, like really good jokes. So I could tell that you've done work on that speech.
Yeah.
And it's not so much I'd done work. I treated that like the most important gig I was ever going to do.
Awesome.
Yeah. And they're jokes that really may, if they were a 10 that day, I'm not saying I killed it a 10. Let's say I was an 8, 9-ish. They're the sorts of jokes I could retell to someone and they might be a 1 or a 2.
Yes. That's the beautiful thing about context, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the context, there was so much context and your family and your nan, like it was a perfect storm for these jokes to kill because they were designed for that.
I think for the only time in my life though, Ollie, I was probably mentally ready to pick up on what was happening in the lead up to my speech. Like when I got there, although this didn't make the speech, but I have said this on stage since, people were asking my nan, are you going to stand up and get a picture with the letter from Prince or King Charles? And she said, no word of a lie to one of these ladies who wanted her to stand up, I'm not standing up for that guy. Which I thought, that's good. I didn't end up using that. And then my grandmother has an insane memory but can also talk underwater. And a lady walked up to her and said, oh, Irma, how you going? I'm sure you're all talked out. And I thought, oh, that's how I'm going to start. And I just walked up in front of her and said, look, I don't know who that lady was that said to Nan she's probably all talked out. You clearly are at the wrong party because you don't even know her.
Yeah.
And everyone knows she could talk. So that was like, oh, yeah, this is going to go all right. But I was fucking nervous. And you probably weren't at the engagement because I guess it's kind of maybe a slightly different kind of context.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, gosh, they put the pressure on me to celebrate this lady's 100th birthday.
Yeah.
And there's like five generations of people here. Yeah. So I was dying of nerves.
But and pulled it off. I think that's the mate. Like, nailed it.
6 months later, I was doing a gig in a local pub at an open mic and wanted to dive off the stage.
Wondering why.
Wondering why, yes.
What am I doing here?
Yes.
Do I really know what hole in my life has not been filled
Yeah.
that I need to be here.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
that was one thing that never happened in music. I played guitar for a long time. If a gig wasn't going well, you could just almost go inside yourself and just be like, I'm going to play guitar. I'm going to become a guitar player in a little shell. There's nowhere to go when you're doing stand up. Like
no,
you can't
no,
just
no,
go back
no,
inside yourself and start whittling away or get really
yeah,
self-absorbed
yeah.
because that's
You're
just going to make it worse.
you're the only thing on that stage when you're doing stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just sort of take one step to the left and you're half behind the bass player. Like, yeah,
Exactly.
you're it. Yeah, you're it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't want to go too comedy nerd. We actually promised each other we wouldn't do that. So I've got a question I want to end today with, but we had an idea and we'd love for people that are hearing this to maybe send in some suggestions. We want to talk about golden eras. And the reason why golden eras is relevant to Ollie and I was I think the first thing we ever got along about on a road trip over to Wagga was you found out I was a tennis head and I found out that you were more so maybe than anything at the time a massive Federer fan. And we started talking about the golden era of tennis. Like we've gotten to live through the greatest era, well, particularly in the men's game of all time. And we thought, oh, that's probably something. There's lots of golden eras. Like the Aussie cricket team had a golden era. These are all the things we're hoping to explore in the future.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, when it comes to golden eras, I want you to give me your golden era of eating parmies. When in your life were you maybe smashing the most quality parmies and where were you based at the time?
I was based in Albury. So
Yeah.
I was just when I was still living in Albury. And then this is so I have eaten my way around Albury Wodonga when it comes to parmies. I could give you a full rundown on each establishment. There's sort of 4 or 5 key establishments in Albury
Yes.
where I've eaten a parmy. And so, yeah, there was a good era when I finished uni. So when I come back and was living in Albury with my parents. So, yeah, good sort of 5 years. So, yeah, 2017 to 2021, basically 4 years. Yeah, so my favourite parmy on its day is the Newmarket in Albury.
Oh,
So on its day, it is the best. It's the best one. Because what I love about the Newmarket too is when they're at their best, they don't mess around with salad, Josh. You know what I mean? Like you can add salad, you can add veggies if you have to, but it's a choice. It's a decision you have to make on top of the palmy.
yeah.
They know who they are.
Yes.
Like they're not trying to fool anyone. Yeah.
There's nothing that screams an amazing establishment more than palmy awareness.
Yeah.
If they're putting it out there that you can have salad, but we're going to jam that under the piece of chicken.
Yeah.
That's going in that slot that's at the side of the plate and jammed straight under some fucking tomato sauce.
Here's the thing that I love about the Newmarket or the Nui is they don't even do that. The salad is so much of an afterthought or just an unnecessity. I don't know if that's a word. I've just made it up.
We'll roll with it.
Yeah. They put it in a bowl separately.
Yeah.
And they go, here's your salad. And they don't try to make it a thing that it isn't. They throw lettuce, a dodgy chopped bit of tomato, and some weird, like, shaved carrot. Well, not even grated. It's like shaved.
Yeah.
I don't know how to show, but it's not grated. It's not whole. It's like this weird shaved sort of scenario.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you just get like when people got those dodgy, like, their feet with their skins all over the shop. And yeah, it's grip. I know you don't like bodily function talk, Josh. I found this out a little while
That
ago.
really just caught me off guard. I'm sorry.
So yeah, it's like an extra $2 for like this bowl of like lettuce, tomato, and carrot with some dodgy dressing on the side. And then when their palmies are really going, I'm about it. But yeah, on its day, in my opinion, one in the greater Albury area, it is the best one I've had. But yeah, I think on its day, the best palmy is the Newmarket in Albury. And if you're really up for it, you get the cheesy garlic bread as a starter. And if it's cooking, you're in for a real big night because it's cheese and carbs, and it's just, as I said, that's they don't have a half either. So they're like, we're not, as much as I love the half, as I said off the top at the Imperial in the city, they don't have halves. So they're like, either eat it or don't. But this is what we're dealing with.
The thing's been is traditionally so big that even if they had a half, it's still as big as a normal pub parmy.
Yeah, it's the size, it's the size of your plate, and the plate is massive. People go, oh, it's the size of your plate. So the Newmarket, they've embodied that, but they've also got massive plates.
They have one thing and I have had a parmy there, and it was quite good. The people that I was with that did get a side salad, it was very much, here's your salad, child. Whenever there was so much spite behind that shredded carrot. Was like, here you go, you wuss.
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah.
And I always love food that comes with a little bit of attitude. Like, oh, you're really piked on being a man there, didn't you, mate? Like if you get the most mild curry, and they're looking at you like, oh god.
If you don't like spicy food, why are you eating Indian?
Yes.
Like,
My golden era parmy. Well, there's two. I had one in Sydney that was so mind-boggling. I can't remember the name of the place, but I remember where it was.
Yeah.
I could, if it's still there, if the pub's still there, I'm pretty sure I could get you there, but I don't remember the name of it. So that one will just have to live in my mind as like a phantom parmy. But they used to make an exquisite one at the Star Hotel, once again in Albury. This is probably early mid-2000s when they used to have massive Sunday sessions there. And it wasn't anywhere like near the volume of some of these mass parmies you get now. It was just the sauce quality.
Yeah.
Like Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine would talk about and write in his newsletter about the sauce quality. It was that great. The cheese tasted like actual cheese, from the dairy department, not scraped off the floor. It was, it was magnificent. And the chicken was always, you felt like you were getting like decent quality chicken, not just the leftover crap.
I've had a Star Parmy, and it's been, it'd be touch and go, I think, when they're both at their best for me, the Nui and the Star. But I think the Star is a different experience. I think the Star, it's smaller in size, but they've got a depth to their Parmy that the Nui doesn't. Like they have a physical thickness and depth.
Yes.
That it's a different thing, and they're both great. Like,
I would say that the Nui is more your Rafa Nadal, brute force, get this in your face. And the Star on its day is maybe a Roger or a Novak, but it's more often than not an Andy Murray.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit outside of that category.
Yeah, I think that's a great call, Josh, because Rafa is consistency.
It is.
He's all guts and all just grit. But his level, while it may be a touch below the Rodgers and the Novaks in class and style, he hasn't, he's broken, his body's finally broken in, like, say, the last 12 months. You're a bit more tapped into the tennis world than I am. But for a good 15 years there, he just didn't miss.
No.
And I think pound for pound, the Nui, it just has a consistency. Yeah, I think the Star, Roger Novak comparison, it can go to a level that on its day you go, oh, it's right up, But then, I think you're right. When it does drop, it drops to the level of a angry, slightly bitter Scotsman.
Exactly. And so, talking about angry and bitter, I wanted to ask you a question to finish up today. Episode 1 of the Half Parmi.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, guys, so far. We're getting through this. We're crushing it.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you this question. And I put this on Facebook today, but I wanted to ask you specifically. Has anyone ever said something so offensive to your ears that they thought was cool that you wanted to punch yourself in the face to the point where your ears stopped working?
Yes. I do have I have ideas that I've had this feeling. Whether in the moment I'll come up with a example.
So the reason I say that is
Yeah.
I went to buy a coffee when I was on my walk, and the
Yeah.
person that served me the coffee said the word slay. And that's a word I
Okay.
hear too often from too many people now. Now, I grew up as a massive Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. So to me, the word slay is for one thing, anything Buffy related. But if you say slay because you flicked some fucking chocolate on top of a cappuccino and didn't get it on the bench, I'm not okay with that.
That was the context of the
It
use of
was
the
a
word.
it was a flick, and it all got on top of the drink. She put the lid on and then said the word slay, like to herself.
Nah, I'm not about that. Yeah, I think cool or awesome is suffice
Yeah.
in that
Or
context.
maybe thank you, since I was the one paying for the coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe like, oh, here's your coffee. Also, did you just see that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, make it a game, not self-referential.
yeah. Yeah. What I mean, I've definitely had moments, and I'll get back to you on that because I've definitely had moments of just like, what? Like,
Yeah.
but good is it good coffee? Is it a coffee that can counteract or cancel out the fact that the person who made it used the word slay?
Look, some coffees you get because you make an intentional mission amongst many options to choose that one place. Whereas this was a coffee where it was really the only thing available on my route. So I felt
So
like
it's a
I'd been
logistical
kind of
coffee.
penned in a little bit already for options, and then I got the sleigh.
You got the sleigh, and you were already choosing this coffee out of logistical convenience.
Correct.
So it already has lost a bit of its ability.
Yeah.
It's kind of battened from behind a little bit already, and then you throw in the sleigh,
Yeah.
which is just inappropriate. People talk about slurs in 2023. That needs to be considered one.
I wouldn't have said that this morning until it happened, but now I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Like if there's a logistics issue, don't be throwing in a linguistics issue. Like that's simple.
Yeah.
I didn't walk up there just fucking radiating joy like a Care Bear when I ordered the coffee. I was in my shell. Yeah.
On that note, that might be a window for everyone into this podcast. Just that it will pop up every now and then. Just a bit of just aggro at the world, kind of. Just.
Do you think that people know that? Well, I know that I'm very capable of that, and I think that Ollie is as well. But I found out recently, Ollie, that I don't hide my emotions as well as I thought I did. I thought I was.
Okay.
I thought I was impossible to read.
Like deadpan, like poker face
But
style.
like poker face in all situations. And I've been told multiple times recently that no, Josh, you have no poker face.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I am fortunate enough, unlike the barista this morning, I've never been around you where I've felt that you're like being, it would never been in a hostile environment together where you're like exuding disdain for the environment around you. I feel like I can say that about me to you. Like I feel like whenever we're together, like good shit's going on. So we're like up and about. But I do have moments where I've even like consciously to bring up comedy and stand up again. I've been at many a bad gig and watched bad comedy, and I could feel my face not like I could feel that I wasn't hiding well, that I am not enjoying myself to the point where I've had mates come up in at these times, going, "Oh, mate, you didn't like that guy at all, like that last ex guy or whoever it was." And I was like, "Oh, dude, was it that obvious?" And I had a mate tell me once. They said, "Yeah, it was. I could see your face from across the room and the lines it was making. And by the way, we're in the dark." So,
So you're really radiating.
yeah, it's a foot. I think when I witness something like whether it's bad comedy or it's a whole body thing.
Mm.
So, it's not just dedicated to bad comedy, but I definitely have moments where I'm like, I'm reacting negatively to this, and I can feel my whole body it's happening.
For me, the first time I remember being told that I wasn't enjoying something when I was my first girlfriend ever told me that I wasn't enjoying watching Linkin Park play when they were on their Hybrid Theory tour. And I think I've never really listened to people from that point on when they say, oh, you look like you're in a bad mood. Because to me, it always sounds like, no, you're just trying to make me enjoy a thing the way you enjoy a thing.
Yes.
Can't I enjoy the thing how I want?
Yes. Yeah.
And so maybe people have been telling me my whole life that I need to cheer up or that I look angry, but I've just been blocking it out.
Yeah, you need to get on like my extroverted level of enjoyment, where in actual fact, my personality type is not that.
Yes.
Like Josh, you strike me. I have another friend like this who I was a schoolmate with. Lachlan is his name. I was best man in his wedding. But we would go out. And tell me if you relate to this when you were younger. We would go out as like, in our early 20s, late teens in Albury to one of the two bars that we could go out at. And he was a real sort of hang back, sort of stand on the wall kind of guy, just have his drink and like hang out. Whereas not that I'm I can get upbeat and extroverted, and when especially a few drinks, I can be in amongst it all. And I was that person. I would be like, "Hey, you having a good time? Are you sure you're right? Like, what's going on? Are you okay?" And he would go, "Yeah, I'm having a great time."
Yeah.
But he was just someone that was like, a bit introverted, a bit like, this is my great time.
Yes.
I don't need to be in the middle of that sweatbox of a dance floor to be having a good time. Whereas when I was 19 to 23, that's where I had to be enjoying that experience.
That's exactly how I felt in that moment. I was like, I can enjoy this without screaming every lyric out of tune into people's ears like you're doing right now.
Yes, I'm right there with you. I went to Harry Styles last year in New York, and that was the first 5 songs. I couldn't hear him because his crowd, and they're awesome, they were amazing, but they were singing word for word and beat for beat every lyric. And I'm like, I can't hear the guy I've paid to watch. Can we just all power down a little bit?
Can we just shut the fuck up, please?
I paid a lot of money to watch this man dance around and wearing glitter.
Yeah.
So
I could have done that. There's a lot of places you could have done that for cheaper in New York. So.
Yeah. Can we just listen to this guy that has the talent?
Yeah.
And not every 14-year-old in their, onesie.
So talking of having the talent, and that's a great place to finish up. 14-year-olds in onesies. Talking about talent, I think... Is that
the title of the first episode?
If we want there to only be one episode, yes, probably. Righto, Ollie. So that rounds out the first episode of the Half Parmi. How are you feeling? You happy? You stoked?
And I'm feeling good. As I said off the top, we're already in the 2% of the podcast stats. So if we get this out, the first step, we've nailed it. There's more to come, and the show, I think, as viewing the podcast world from a production sense, it will develop, it will get better, and we'll have a direction. I love direction, creative direction. So jump on board early, and then you can say that you're a foundational Half Parmi listener and fan. So get on board.
Get on board. Perfect way to finish up. See you, mate.